What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and I'm really excited because today I'm going to be starting a new series. You've all been asking for it, so here it is. I'm kind of doing a mix with me series where I'm actually going to be taking a piece I just finished up the arrangement on, and now I'm ready to move on to the mixing stage. So I'm going to be taking you through a complete mix from start to finish. We're going to be separating these videos into several parts, so that we can break it up into digestible chunks and see kind of the process I go through. Mixing is one of those processes that I just have a lot of fun with because you have your arrangement, which should be well arranged already. With any piece of music, we should always have a good arrangement to start with. Like they say, you cannot polish a turd. So if you have an arrangement that's really bad and then you try to mix that, you'll get a polished turd. You have to start with good source material. You know what I'm saying? So the foundation has to be laid first. And I'll let you listen to that in a second, but we're going to get into this right away. So just before I start getting into the first step, I actually put together a mixing checklist and a guide for you to follow along and see my entire process of mixing. So if you check the description box below, the link is right there for you to download the guide, and you can download it right now. You can follow along, and with each of these videos that come out, you can see exactly how I'm applying each step and taking the mix one step closer to completion. So it's for free right now in the description box below. Just download it and you can follow along. So before we get into the actual mix itself, we have to do a little bit of organization, and we have to rearrange the tracks in a certain way. So if you take a look right now, on the left side, you see all my track names are actually very convoluted. And so you might fall victim to this sometimes, where you're composing on a whim and you're hearing instruments in your head. You're like, oh, I want to put this instrument in, I want to put this instrument in, and so as a result, you get instruments that are not categorized at all. So you see, I started with the string ostinato, then I went with a glockenspiel, which is percussion, then I went with brass, and then I went with the woodwinds, and then I went with strings again, because I was basically choosing tracks based on what I was hearing in my head at that moment. And so this is sometimes what happens when we don't have a template. We start off completely from scratch, and the benefits, I personally prefer not working with a template, just because I can hear the sounds I want in my head, and I'm not influenced by prearranged tracks already. I can basically go through and pick a patch and then drag it in, and then I can write with that one. But as you can see, it sometimes results in kind of a messy track listing here. So the first thing we need to do is rearrange the tracks. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to play through the track actually, and so you can hear the whole thing from start to finish. And then after that, we're going to start right away into the organization, and I'm actually going to print all the tracks to audio so I can start mixing with audio, and then I'm going to rearrange them in a certain order that makes it easier for me to work with. Okay, so let's just hear the track ones first. All right, so now that you have a sense of what the track sounds like, let's actually go through and uh, let's print all of these to audio. And I'm going to exclude the first track of each contact instance because when I print those tracks to audio, it actually creates kind of a mono sound and it kind of makes it not sound good anymore. So I'm going to quickly do this. So file, bounce tracks in place, just like this. And I'm going to set them all to new tracks. Okay. And so again, what this is going to allow me to do, first of all, is to commit all my MIDI to audio. And I did a video on this in the past, a couple of years ago, but kind of describing the difference between mixing with MIDI and mixing with audio. And mixing with MIDI has the benefit of not really having to take the next step of printing to audio. But the drawback is when you're mixing when you're mixing MIDI, the MIDI notes can trigger different round robins. If you're, especially with orchestral music, if a cello short note is recorded 6 times, for example, like if they're recording a middle C and they record that same C a few times to get some variance, if you have to repeat the note, right? Then every time you play that MIDI part, it's going to trigger a different round robin. So your ears might get fooled into hearing something that sounds good, or you might prefer a certain sample over another. But if you mix with audio, then naturally it's going to stick with one printed sample the entire time. So that way you commit to that sample. And so that's the best way to go there. Okay, cool. So what I want to do now is I'm actually going to move all of these audio tracks so that they are categorized together. And then what that will allow me to do is it'll make sorting them a little bit easier. So I'm going to see if I can deselect. Let me see here. So I have violins 1. Okay, that's good. Yep. I have all the audio tracks selected here. This is what Logic already did for me by default, which is great. Just double checking if I have them all selected. Good, and I also need this one. Deselect that one. Okay, great. So I'm gonna see if I can drag them all down now. Oh, actually, maybe I'll do it down here. There we go. So drag all by tracks all the way down. If I miss 1 or 2, I'm going to pick up those pieces. I can see I'm already missing a couple, which is okay. So let's do it down here. There we go. Great. So let's see what we're missing. We're missing oboe legato, and we also have a snare missing. So snare, I'll take that one, and I'll take the oboe. And you can see these other 3 tracks are the first instances of contact. So again, I did not print those to audio because they kind of manipulate the audio in a weird way. So I'm going to take those, drag them down to my other tracks. And this is the first housekeeping step, if you will. We're not doing the exciting stuff yet, as you can see. So I've already kind of arranged the first few tracks by strings. So I'm going to do this first. So violins. Anytime I see a string thing, I'm going to move it up to this first section. So horns, trombone, horns, piano, snare, flute. Let's keep going. Flute, bassoon, low strings. There's one. Violas. Let's find some more. Timpani, cymbals, harp. CS violins right there. And then we have some violin staccatos, low strings, strings runs. And I believe that is it. Just these 2. Great. Okay, so now I'll move them up. I can rearrange them later. But first step is just to get them all together. And now what I want to do is actually select all of these strings over here, and I'm going to make them a color. So let's see if I can do that, or do I have to do it here? Assign track color over here. There we go. Let's say I wanted yellow. Cool. Now I'm going to select these tracks over here. I guess I have to do it this way, just like that. And then make them all yellow. There we go. Good. All right, let's put the woodwinds together. So brass, I'm going to drag down here. Brass. Move those down a little bit. Flute trills need to go up. Glock is perk, so I'm going to move that down. Symphony, horn, trombone. Bassoon is woodwind, so is oboe. Piano is part of percussion, so I'm going to leave that for later. Piccolo is also needs to go up there. Hollywood Winds, there we go. Those are 2. I think that's it. Nice. Okay. So let's do that really quickly. Now, woodwinds I like to make a light blue, so let's quickly do that. There we go. And then re-highlight, and then select. Good. I'm going to leave the extra stuff as green. So I'm going to stick with brass as red actually. So let's take this percussion stuff, move that down. Then I have trumpets here, I have horns here, I have brass chords here. Anything else? Any other brass that I'm missing? Trombone melody. And that is basically it. So let's move that up here. Perfect. All right, so now if we take a look at the overall tracks, we have the strings over here in yellow, we have woodwinds in blue, we have the brass in red, we have the percussion in brown, and then all the extras I put in green here. So Cine-Orc is kind of a track gluer. It's kind of pre-orchestrated chords, which serve really well as a bed of sorts. Harp plucks and glissandi I put as extra as well, and then the choirs I also put in green there. Cool. So let's recap what we did so far. We took all of our MIDI tracks, almost all of them, and we printed them all to audio. So this commits the MIDI to a certain sample, prints them all out into audio tracks. So now it's just as if like I recorded a full orchestra and now I have all the audio tracks, right? Presented for me to mix. So the next thing is to organize them by groups in terms of instrument sections. So strings, woodwinds, brass, and percussion, and then all the extras you can also put in there as a different section. And then finally, we're going to we color coded them just to make it a little bit easier to see. And that's going to be very handy actually when I pull up the mixer view and I look through all these tracks here and I see, okay, I know, which color represents which section. So everything to the left of my yellow part, because my yellow is strings, I always put strings at the top. So everything to the left, excepting the contact instances, I'm going to ignore everything else except from these ones. Okay? Because when Logic prints the MIDI tracks to audio, it automatically mutes all of the MIDI tracks, which is very, very handy. So I only hear the audio tracks being played back. So now if we listen to the whole thing, it should sound identical to what we heard before, because the MIDI is just an audio version now. So if we skip to the okay, so in the next video, we're going to be diving into the prep phase of the mix. So this is going to involve pre-mix EQ, where we actually listen to all the tracks and just cut out the frequencies that don't really contribute to the overall product. And yeah, we're just going to take away all the dirty stuff, if that makes sense. So this step, though, you should not skip over. It's very, very important to stay organized and just get everything set up and build a good foundation first. So I hope that makes sense. I will see you in the next video. Very excited. And yeah. See you in that video. Have a great one. Bye-bye.